Okay, so we're back for another episode. This episode is going to be interesting for me, probably more difficult of a topic for me to relate to being 28 years old, but I know you wanted to speak on retirement, and retirement is not something that is even in my vocabulary at this moment. But how serious, I don't want to say concerned, but how much thought should someone my age be putting into retirement and those even getting closer to that retirement age?
I would say that people should really, really consider it because if you fail to plan, plan to fail. So even when I was in my 20s, I didn't think about it either. Now, in this stage of my life, I think about it. So, when I was 20, I was going to the club. I was doing all the things that 20-year-olds do. So it wasn't on my radar. But when it came to my promotions or work or those things, I had an opposite approach. So I listened to all of my mentors and my elders and I followed what they did. And, I always knew that, if you want to be a millionaire, ask a millionaire. If you want to be a general, ask a general. A 20-year-old probably needs to ask in a nutshell, do you plan on working longer than you're retired? Or do you plan on being retired longer than you're working?
I'd
That
like to be retired longer than I'm working, quite frankly.
exactly, exactly. So everybody needs to think about that, even if you're 20 years old, right? Do you want to work until you're 60, or do you want to retire and then work a little bit and retire longer? So which
Mhm.
block do you want to be longer? The first half or the second half?
Second
Right?
half, for
Right.
sure.
And so what you have to do is you say, okay, how do you want to retire? Do you want to retire struggling or do you want to retire where your golden years are golden? And that's, and the earlier the better. And so now, the good thing about your generation is they're not as tied to one job as we were,
Mm-mm.
where you stay at a job for 30, 40 years and you work like, work your tail
Mm.
off and give every shred of everything and forget everything else your whole life, and then you retire and then you still don't have enough for retirement. The younger people, they do have a better structure because they do think about it and they do side hustles and they will do different things that, and they care about their quality of life. But the real question is, do you plan on working longer than you're retired, or do you want to be retired longer than you're working? And so how are you going to go about that? And so when I look at I took a peek at retirements currently. So when people retire, like right now, what is the average 401k? What is the average government thrift savings plan? And what is the IRA retirement when people retire? So most people are underfunded across the board
Mm.
because a lot of people don't think about it until they turn 50. So the real thing is, how do you catch up, or how do you really plan for it? And so that's one of the things I'll be writing some articles about on LinkedIn is, now that you're thinking about it, well, how do you catch up? How do you
They
catch up right now?
Well, you say they think about it at 50, considering they say the retirement age is 65. Is it possible to retire well before that age that they give us? Can you retire at 40 years old?
You can. You can retire at 40, but you have to plan for it. This is where I tell people, I tell my son, he's 30, I said, it's your movie, it's your script, you own it, right? So you can determine where you want to be, but you have to plan for it, because if you're casual about life, you will end up a casualty. And so most people are casual, and then they'll end up a casualty somewhere along the line.
Hmm.
And so it's almost similar to, nobody's going to care about your retirement more than you. So it's almost similar to New Year's resolutions. You have to, every December and January, you have to see where you are. Where are you? And so what I'm going to do in my article is, and I'm going to actually walk through it, is, where should you be at 30 in your retirement? Where should you be at 35? Where should you, is it 40,000, 50,000. So there's a number for each goal. And so if somebody clearly articulates that number, then you know where your catch up is and how to go about it. And so looking at it every year and then saying to yourself, well, hey, putting it in writing makes it real, at least to me. And so when I say I want to retire, like I retired twice.
Twice.
I retired from the military at like 40, and
Mm-hmm.
then I retired from corporate America at 57.
Hmm.
And
How
so
do you how do you know in this situation? You said you would track. How do you know whether you're ahead or falling behind? If someone was 50 years old right now that joined this group, how do they know if they're ahead or behind in the retirement plan?
so I asked a question with investing. So that's one of the things about my group is, my methods can catch anybody up from any place. And so I would say a real goal is I ask people, okay, do you want to retire comfortably? And so there are methods to use. So let's say you have 200,000 in your 401k. Well, if you realistically, I would say a person should have at least 500,000 in their 401k or in their retirement plan, not just a 401k, but a combined.
For them to be
You
on
have
track?
Yeah, if you have
Okay.
your investments and you combine your investments, your IRA, your investments, your TSP if you're a government worker, or a 401k if you're working in corporate America. So somewhere along the line between those income producing assets, both of them combined. Now, if you only have one, then you have to do some catch up. Whereas if you only have a 401k, you have to, if you have that 500,000, then there are methods to use to make sure that you can retire comfortably. Because the other thing that I think about and I teach people in the group is, are you going to outlive your retirement? That's why people don't retire, because they think they're going to outlive their money.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't have enough to retire.
Mm-hmm.
So the goal is really to have 10 times your annual salary to retire. If you have 10 times your average salary in your um, investment portfolio, whether it's your 401k or IRA, then that's a good start. And then there are methods that we teach in the group to make sure that you don't outlive your retirement, that you have generational wealth. And they're tried and true. They're not they're 100% accurate because I use it for myself. So I teach every single person exactly how to do it. And once you do it, then it changes the game. And so the earlier you start, the better. That's why I said, hey, I'm going to teach you the way I know it, so that you can tell your son, your kids, your
Mm-hmm.
daughter, your family the same way. You can teach it to them, and then that way, is foundational. And then it's far different from everybody else, but that's my agenda, is to do that. And so, whether you're 40, 50, I can meet you where you are and walk you through a goal and give you, say, okay, depending on what you want to do, here's the number. How do we get to it? And you work backwards, right? So,
What percentage? And this may be, you might not have the exact answer. I'm not expecting you to, but a rough estimate. What percentage of the working American do you think is prepared for retirement from the age? I mean, any age, whether it's my age included or when they're at the close to retirement age of 50 to 65. What percentage do you think is prepared? And for those that aren't, why do you think they're not prepared?
they're less than half. I researched it, which is why I was doing this article, and I said, less than half of the people. And so I was in my research, I was saying, what's the average retirement at 65 for a 401k? It's like
Mhm.
200,000, 220. What's the average for a thrift savings plan if you're a government worker? It's a little bit better. It's like a little bit under 300. You know, what's the if you don't have either one, what's the average account of a, an IRA at retirement is more, it's more like 400. And so that, if you can see, the stocks make you a little bit more prepared, when with less than half prepared, half of America, then it's critical to start early and raise the flag. And then, I'm not even talking about, I didn't even break it down by barriers or income brackets, or black and brown and compared to everyone
Mm-hmm.
else, but I'm pretty sure it's behind.
Right.
Yeah. And so this is what people have to think about is, financial literacy, and the earlier the better. And so most people, the reason why, as you said, is um, most people work harder on their job than they do on themselves, and they focus on the job. They don't focus on finances because it's kind of foreign,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they rely on professionals, right? And they look up and they're still not prepared. Like if everybody has financial planners, why is half of America not prepared? Like, how is that possible, right? Like, I mean, really, if I'm an expert, then I should have expert money,
Right.
right? Especially after 30 years. And if I don't, then time to throw out the playbook and do something else.
Try something
And
new.
so, right, try something new. So most people are not prepared because they don't focus on it. They're very passive. They put it away and they go, "Hey, I got money in my 401k," but they're really not looking at how it's working.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask too. You're going to have that
Mhm.
group or percentage that is pretty confident that they're doing it correctly. What errors do you think have been made, or your as you put it, retirement nightmares? What errors could they be making? Is it lack of information, or is it their? That's what you would put it at, lack of information.
It's a little bit of both, because some of it is on the person and some of it is on the job or the government, or what. And what I mean by that is they'll tell you, hey, we have a 401k, or we have a TSP plan, but then they make it more difficult than it is,
Mm-hmm.
or they add more information, so they don't explain it in plain English. Here's what it does and here's what it doesn't do, and here's what you should be doing. Those are the pieces, those are the people. So people make the mistake, like, hey, I'm just going to work my 20 years and I'm going to do this. And what people need to realize is when you retire, you're going to retire a lot longer. And so how do you want your retirement to look? That's why I ask people in the group, what do you
Mm-hmm.
want your retirement to look like? Right? Do you want it to look great or do you want to be struggling? Because you have to be prepared. Now, unless you're in the military like me, medical becomes
Right.
big the older you
Right.
get. That eats into your retirement. People don't prepare
Mm-hmm.
for that. Let one thing go south and those
Yeah.
medical bills are, ruin people. Oh, go
That's what I was
ahead.
going to ask. Being 28 years old, right? and I don't think we have such tunnel vision, millennials and even their generation or me, because we don't have to think about certain. We should, but we don't have to think about those certain things. Um, and I guess preparing for it now helps us because there are other expenses that we have to consider. It's not just as simple as putting money off to the side, 401k and those things. It's much deeper than that. What
Mhm.
advice would you have for someone who is going on 30, who is 28 years old and is thinking, okay, I need to start preparing for that? What is step one? Just something as small, as simple advice that you can give. I know you're going to write an article about it, and I think everyone that listens and watches this should go tap in for more information. He'll elaborate more there. But for someone my age, what small advice could you give as far as retirement planning?
I would say, learning the foundations of money, um, learning how money works, and then investing. And so the earlier youth works, if the earlier you start investing, the better off you're going to be. And you always want to have options no matter what your age.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're 20, 25, 30, you want to be able to go out on your terms, or you want to be able to do things on your terms. Because when I was early in the military, I had online businesses, even though I was in the military, and I worked just as hard on those businesses as I did for the military.
Right.
And so that way, when it came time for my 20 years, I had options. I could stay in the military, or I don't have to, because I wasn't tied to the money and I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't tied to the job. So you want to be able to call people, call in sick. You want to be able to call in well, I don't feel like coming in anymore. Well, I don't feel like coming in anymore.
Colin well.
Deuces. Right? You want to be able to throw up deuces and leave. Or you want them to know that you can walk at any given moment. It's totally different. And so my preparation was good. So, and then even when I got to corporate America, same thing. I never let go of those businesses, and I always was able to say, you know what, I could work here, but I don't have to work here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always prepping to say, whether I'm 40 or 50, I want to live life on my terms. And then that way, I want to be retired and I want to enjoy my life. And the earlier, when you have friends checking out, when you start getting 40 or 50 and things happen unexpectedly, then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden it becomes a little bit clearer that, maybe I don't need to be lackadaisical, right? I need
Right.
to make things count. That's what I, for young people, the earlier that, figure out, say, you know what, my goal is 45 or 50, and it may seem like a lifetime, but it's going to come fast. And so as long as you start, and I always recommend starting from the bottom. You got to, when you build a house, you have to have a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning the principles of money, that's why I teach that first. And that's free. You can just go on YouTube and type it in. I have a link,
Right.
but that's something you share out and say, hey, here's the foundation of money, and then learn how to invest. And the good thing is you don't have to ask anybody. And the earlier you start, you can start with $50, $10, but it's discipline, it's consistent. So, anybody, even if you're 20, it's like putting it, what I always say is, somebody gives you an envelope and you throw it in your sock drawer, right? You throw it in your sock drawer. So every month, if you give yourself $20 and you throw it in your sock drawer, at the end of the year, you'll have a lot of money,
You
right?
had a
You'll be
lot of money.
surprised.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same way. So this is your retirement fund. So even at 20, putting $20 away, or you say $1 a day, right? $1 a day, $30 a month, I would recommend. And so, but it's your life, right? And so, and the earlier you do it, the better off you'll be.
Yeah.
And then you can, you start off with just putting, hey, I used to have a change jar. Every time when I had cash, now people don't have cash a lot, but what I used to do is I challenged myself. I said, here's what I'm going to do. So I said, when I had a lot of cash, I would just, every time I go to the store and I get money and they give me change back, I just put it in this jar,
Mm-hmm.
and I would hold it for like maybe a year or 2 years, and then I'd cash it in, and you'd be surprised at how much money I had in it. And so it's the same thing. If you have extra money, maybe you put it in a drawer. I do that. Like if I have any loose change or a couple of dollars, I throw it in a drawer. And at the end of the year, I wind up, me and the wife go to Vegas with it. But you
Uh,
can also invest it, right?
I'll say this. I'll say this. It's kind of, I won't call it ironic, but it is funny that it sounds like the process of preparing yourself for retirement involves a little bit more of taking risks and playing it safe. When you say invest, yeah, you're going to give yourself money, you'll save, but everyone's always pitched it as just save, 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 penny pinch, so you can have your money over. But it sounds like you have to maybe even take some losses, maybe invest to gain back to be able to prepare for that. Am I misinterpreting that?
Well, you're right. It's, everybody takes a few L's, but overall, historically, the stock market goes up,
Mm-hmm.
and those are learning experiences. So it's just like life, right? You learn not to touch the stove. You learn
Right.
not to cross the street in the middle of traffic. So it's the same thing. You lose, you make a bad investment, you learn not to do it again, right? You learn
Right.
some of the safer investments, and so here's where picking your coaches matters.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to, success leaves footprints. For me, I always look at, what was somebody's success and who were they following, and then do I want to follow them? And so that's how I decide how I want to do things. And so when I learned how to do stock investments, I picked the top people. Warren Buffett. I picked the top people on Wall Street, and then
Mm-hmm.
I studied them. And then I came up with a strategy where I minimized my losses. So now, historically, over time, I'm always doing better than the market, and not a little bit better, far better. And
Right.
I've learned the mistakes of bad teachers, bad instructions, bad advice, so I can weed through all of that. Now it's to the point of teaching it. And like you said, Warren Buffett just put out that article. He said, I had my share of losses, but I made 12 decisions that made me a billionaire. So
Mm-hmm.
out of all those losses, 12 decisions made me a billion.
I'll
Billion
take it.
dollars.
I'll
Yeah, I'll
take it.
take it. I'll take
Give
it.
me
So,
give me all the
you know,
losses. I'll take it.
yes. In baseball, there's only been less than five 400 hitters in all of baseball, in the history of baseball. So that's 4 out of 10. Less than five. You
Mm.
know, Steph Curry shoots 41% lifetime. That's still 4 out of 10, and he's Steph Curry is the best, right?
41%. He shoots more than anybody.
Yeah, he shoots more. So that's 4 out of 10, right? You
Mm-hmm.
know, so in basketball, 4 out of 10. And so in the stock market, if you're doing, that should be the initial goal, right? 40%. And
40%.
40% will put you in the top 1% right away. And if you can't get there, you have to figure out why, what is the person you're following? What is their percentage? And how do you get there? And
Mm.
so that's how I figure it out. I start from there. I'm like, who's the best of the best, right? So in baseball, the top hitters hit 300. Otani, those people are making
Mm-hmm.
200 million. Mike Trout making $200 million for hitting 300, 3 out of
Yeah.
10. Steph Curry, 4 out of 10. You
Mm-hmm.
know, changing the game. So I
Follow
was like,
them.
well, in the stock market, 40%, because most people, the best, the top investors are at like 29-30%, which is
Mm.
similar to sports. So if you're clocking 30% in the stock market, you are in the top percentile of of investors. And so I was fortunate to be at 60%.
60%.
61.
60%. I
61.
don't I don't even know what athlete to compare you to. What is that? Are you
Right.
Jordan? What is that? We shooting mid
Hey,
range?
something like that. My game is deadly. It's tight. My handle is. The thing about it is I started at 40, and I
Mm-hmm.
kept saying, how do I get to 40? And I kept tightening it up and tightening it up. And so I challenged myself every year to get to 40, because the stock market changes. But if you get to 40, you're always going to be in the top echelon, the very, very top. That's always my goal. And so, that's why I challenge everybody, think about it like that, from all spectrums, when you really think about it. So, 4 out of 10, which means you don't win everything.
Mm.
You can't get them all right. But
Right.
if you get 4 out of 10 right, and you get the right four in the stock market, you won't have any complaints. And if you do that consistently, you won't have to do that, even that after a while, because if you're doubling the market returns or quadrupling the market returns every single year, you won't have a lot of problems.
Noted. Duly noted. As we close it out, where's the best place they could get the article that you're going to release? And then when are you going to put that article out for those that need a little bit more information related
Oh,
to the retirement plan?
well, I'll start putting them out, and there'll probably be several articles because it's a big topic, and there are a lot of age groups that will be interested. And so, the best place that I operate is on LinkedIn. So hit
Mhm.
up John J. Snead, or hit up my company page, Wealth Builders Mastermind Group, and then check out the podcast because we love it, and it's now on Spotify, so you can look it up on Spotify. Climbing the charts.
Put it in the playlist. We
That's
coming for
right.
you, Joe Budden, Joe Rogan, all them.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, I think that can conclude that for me. Um, if you have anything else, let it be known. If not, that's it.
Well, Rise to Riches is the podcast. That's the correct title. So no matter where you are, you can rise to riches. You can rise to riches anytime. You just have to decide that you want to do it.